Hello, welcome to the C50 podcast.
Jay, Becca, Bella, and myself all know that mental health is important, and those sitting around this table are either diagnosed with a mental illness or support someone who is.
If you're anything like us, you may be listening to this while you drive, work, clean, or you could be doing many other things. We would encourage you to visit www.c50hope.com, where you can follow up with our podcast and get more help.
We have worked hard to build C50 into a ministry that can reach those affected by someone's struggle with mental health and a deeper illness. We believe that a relationship with Christ is key in finding hope. However, we're not professionals. Think on our words, process them, but never consider us more important than a doctor or therapist you may be working with. We would love to recommend professionals that value all your needs, including medication and therapy, and will also point to Jesus Christ as the center of your life and the way for healing and taking you from hurt to hope.
There are a lot of people that give to C50 that make this all possible. We have people praying, many that give financially, people that donate time or space.
And as an example, we've found a home for the C50 podcast, generously donated for us at McQueen Builders in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, PA. Let's call this McQueen Studios, and this is where we pick up today.
Hi, welcome back to the C50 podcast. We're so happy that you're listening, and today we actually have a really great podcast for you guys. But before we get into it, I just want to talk about how extremely blessed we are and how extremely lucky we are to have so many listeners and to get so much great feedback. And I think that it has been incredible to hear about all the different countries that people are from and that they're listening from. Like, I think it was, what was it, South Korea, the UK.
The craziest places.
That's so cool.
Not the craziest places. When you sit in Pittsburgh and you start to look at where people have been listening to this, you go, South Korea.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
South Korea is awesome.
Right.
But, who's listening to South Korea? And if you are listening in South Korea, you should write us at c50hope@gmail.com and just say hello, because that would be super cool.
That would be really cool.
Like, we should start a whole mail thing where like you write, if you're from a different country or some crazy place that like is outside of the bubble of Pittsburgh, you should write c50hope@gmail.com and just say hello.
I would love that. I would love to hear. I would love for people to start interacting with us over the website and emailing us and telling us their stories, because I want to hear what other people are going through from different parts of the country, different parts of the world. I would absolutely love it for people to connect.
How cool would it be to hear somebody from a different country? And I'm using that as a perspective, just like, whoa, it's so cool, but you're struggling out so far away, and we're here together,
Correct. We're in this together, and we can help each other.
So, for anybody out there, this is totally for you to listen to and enjoy, and we hope that it's a benefit to you. We'll tell you about what we're going to do today, but usually it takes a little bit of money for the things that we like to do at C50 Ministries, and boy, I wish that that wasn't the case, but it is. And to get things done, we need a little bit of money, and we are in need of some money, and we would love for you to join us, and we would love to make your donation to the C50 Ministries a donation that is well used, and you can be a part of the team and know what we're doing. And so if you would like to give, go to c50hope.com. That's our website, c50hope.com. Scroll down a little bit and you find a red donate button, and then there you can give a one-time gift or a monthly recurring gift. Either one is awesome. We'd love for you to be a part of the team, and just whatever you can give would be great, and be a part of the C50 team. Bella.
So I'm very, very excited for this podcast today because it is with a guy named Tyler. Say hi, Tyler.
Hi, how y'all doing today?
And I actually met him through my youth group. He is one of the leaders there, and I met him over the summer when he first started. And how I kind of got to know his story was, I don't think we've ever shared this, but in my youth group, I had the pleasure of sharing a message, not just about my story, but just about mental health and mental illness and all, and how we as Christians can look at it, and just how to shed a more positive light on mental health and mental illness in your Christian faith. And after that, Tyler actually came up to me and told me a little bit of his story. So ever since Jay came up to me about the C50 podcast and having more people on it, Tyler has always been someone that's been on my mind because his story is so cool and it's so powerful. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear it.
Tyler, if you could, just so to give everybody out there that's listening just a little bit of background, you don't necessarily have to go into what your diagnosis is or what your struggles were just yet, but just to kind of give people background, tell us a little bit about maybe your childhood, where you grew up, and what your home life was like.
So I grew up about an hour north of Pittsburgh, up in the boonies, really, and it was a pretty isolated place up there. So I had a great family life, very good father and mother, and I have a younger sister. We are very close. She lives in North Carolina now. I did a lot of hunting and fishing. I was involved with soccer and baseball and a lot of sports at a younger age, and had a pretty good group of friends up there.
So did you grow up as a Christian?
Yes, so kind of. I didn't get saved until I was 12 years old, and I went to a church camp at Camp Allegheny, and my sister invited me to go to horse camp, and at first I was like, oh no, that's not for me. I'm a dude, you know what I mean? That's not my thing. But then I looked and she said, oh yeah, because she went the first year without me, and then she came back and she's like, yeah, there was what, 60 girls and 7 dudes. I was like, well, those are good odds. So I think I'm going to do this next year. And I went, and man, I tell you what, Pastor Jeff, he was just wonderful. And he was kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi because he was a magician and a pastor. And it was so awesome. But just that week, really, a lot changed. And that's whenever I got saved. I was 12 years old. Yeah.
So when you got saved, I think some people talk about this a little bit. They were saved, but did you really start relying and having a relationship with Jesus at this point in your life?
It's that young. I mean, yes and no. I was saved, and my dad started coming to church pretty soon after that, and he joined the choir, and then eventually I joined the choir. So
your dad started coming to church after you?
From what I can remember, yes.
How cool was that? Do you love that?
Sorry, Dad, if I messed that up, but I'm pretty sure that's around the time because he worked so much whenever I was younger, because he had started this business, and we were very blessed because he worked very hard.
Right.
But yeah, he didn't come to church whenever I was real little, but eventually he did, and he got really involved and got us into the choir, and that's everything just started to change after that.
So just to touch base a little bit, say from the mental health perspective, as you were growing up as a teenager before you got into the military, did you ever have any struggles growing up with depression, anxiety, anything?
No, we didn't really talk about that whenever I was younger. I mean, that was just a thing that didn't happen to us. You know what I mean? And I never had to struggle with it. Like, I had a great life. I had a good group of friends at school. I wasn't the best student, but I wasn't the worst student, you know? So that was pretty good.
So you never had any struggles or anything like that?
No.
Okay, awesome.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
After high school, you went to college for a little bit, and then at the age of 20, you decided to join the military. What motivated you to take that step, and what kind of was the reasoning behind doing that?
So actually, I was in the 7th grade whenever 9/11 happened, and that's whenever I decided I was going to do it. I would have definitely joined probably right out of high school, but I'm pretty sure my mom chased the recruiter away. Something definitely happened along those lines. But I did go to college for a year, and it just wasn't for me. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life at that point yet, and I knew that spending all that money in college wasn't the answer if it wasn't something I was set on.
So you said, okay, I'm going to join the military.
Yes. I worked construction for a little while, and I moved into my best friend's house in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for a while, and I was bartending and just doing little odd jobs here and there, and I really didn't have a direction in my life. And I walked into the recruiter's office, and I wanted to go to the Army, but they weren't there. They were out to lunch. So the Navy dude was open. I was like, okay.
So wait a minute. You ended up with the Navy because the Army was out to lunch.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding.
Oh.
Yeah, so first, because my buddy Dustin was going to go to the Army with me. Like, we were going to do a buddy system thing. and he went to MEPS, and he was younger than me.
Okay.
So we would have had to wait a little longer, and it didn't work out. There was some other stuff going on, but I went there and I met the Navy recruiter, and he was like, "Yeah, so you wanna have some fun?" He's like, "Look, the Army's got some good stuff. They have a lot of opportunities and stuff, but if you really want to get down dirty, check this out." And handed me a pamphlet about the SEAL teams.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty cool."
Right.
So I read up on that, and I didn't really know a lot of people that were involved with it at that point. And I never thought, can I do that? I don't know. I mean, I think I can, So I got in better shape. I met some really good dudes in the delayed entry program, and we went after it.
So you were deployed. You went overseas.
Yes, I got hurt in training and got rolled out, but yeah, I deployed 4 times.
Okay, so Jen, let me just back up. So you went off to training,
Yep,
and you were going to go into the Navy SEAL program.
I did. I graduated BUDS Prep. I went through BUDS Class 281, and then I got hurt in Hell Week, actually. Yeah.
Okay. So then take us from there. So where'd you go from there?
So then I got hurt, got rolled out of there. I was sent to the East Coast to be a logistics specialist. So I first worked with some F-18s, fighter jets, and then I went back to the SEAL teams. Sorry.
So, I'm just trying to put this together because Karen and Bella know you better than I do. We've met one time, and really, when we were talking, just like as we were talking a second ago, you have a story of redemption.
Yes.
And this really cool story of like the Navy SEALs. I got this fascination with the Navy SEALs and just the highest respect for those guys. I got a friend that's a Navy SEAL, and so I look at that and I just go, man, that's incredible. I think a lot of people, when they hear that, they're gonna go, "Are you kidding me? Like Navy SEAL? Like anybody that knows the military is that's a respected position, right?"
Yes.
So yes. So
kind of.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what's going on in your life? Because, you could really, and maybe it was awesome, but I could sit back in this chair and go, man, this guy is freaking awesome because he went to the Navy SEAL class, and did all that stuff, Was there anything, like, where were you spiritually? You said that you were bartending for a little bit and didn't know what to do. You're kind of spinning your tires. Were you still spinning your tires at that moment? Because, don't you see how Karen, you could almost kind of, I just hold him up on a pedestal.
Correct. Right.
And then, but you could be struggling with your relationship with the Lord.
Exactly. And so what happened was I was a Navy SEAL candidate. I didn't make it through the training. I got hurt, rolled out, but I was flying so high and I just kind of got caught up in myself, essentially. I was selfish. The pride of life got me. And I had this mentality, like, I got this, and I wouldn't say that I told God I didn't need him, but it's slowly, like, a little bit at a time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it just started, I would stop going to church as much. I just drifted apart from Christ. I was like, I was in the best shape of my life.
So then you're drifting apart from Christ, and then you're putting everything into this Navy SEAL training. Yeah. So take us to the moment where you get hurt, and then you're rolled out. Like, what your mental health state at that point? Because that's the Navy SEAL in that training almost became your God, if you will, right?
Yeah, that was like the most important thing in my life at that time. Just it took up so much, and I got hit by that. We were dumping boat, and it's this little race whenever you're out there. Whenever you have a boat crew, okay, and there's a bunch of boat crews. We would go out through the surf zone. You'd fight through the surf. You have to flip your boat over, dump all the water out of it, and then come back in.
See, I watch this stuff on like Discovery Channel.
Yeah, actually, Lars Jensen, the Olympic athlete, he was in the BUDS class there with us.
Okay.
He made it. He was on Michael Phelps' swim team that won all those medals. Okay. Good dude. But anyways, yeah. So the cameras were there filming. It was nuts. But anyways, yeah. So we dump boat. We come back in, and whenever the tide was up, whenever you come back in on one of those boats, you basically catch a wave and you ride it, and you can not really steer. You're going wherever that wave's taking you. You're going, and you're on a ride. Well, whenever we get back in, you got to put the boat on your head. and run up. So there's 6 of us. So the boat's on our head, and we're just running up the beach, and it's high tide. So the water's about ankle to knee deep, depending on the waves. Now the boat was coming in. They took us out. I mean, they come in there and hit me from the side, and my knee was just done.
Are you kidding me?
Lights out, man. Yeah.
So what did that do to you? Because obviously,
I was
mentally,
crushed.
because yes, were you mad at God? Like, what were you thinking at that point when that was taken away from you?
I shut down. I called my cousin, Bryce, the first person I called, and I just broke down. I couldn't even hardly talk. I didn't call my mom and my dad for like a week.
Why were you embarrassed, or why do you think you didn't?
I was just so shaken because that was like my goal in life. Like, what am I going to do now? I don't want to be in the big Navy, you know?
Right.
I didn't want to, I was very blessed and fortunate to be able to come back to the teams as a logistics guy. But beside the point, like at that point, my life stopped and God wasn't even in the picture. I didn't even think to look to God at all.
Which I think is so interesting because I know a lot of high school students, they'll put schoolwork as an idol, or they'll put relationships as an idol, or they'll put other things as idols, and then something happens and God takes it away from them because he's not he's not what they're looking to anymore. Yeah. So it almost, to me, that's what it seems like happened, is that you weren't looking at God anymore, and he was like, gotta fix your eyes on me.
Well, and Bella, when you say that, that's, when you first hear that, you're like, well, what kind of God would do that?
Yeah.
But it's a God who uses things like that. One, he does those things like we in a previous podcast we talked about how he does these things to heal us, and 2, he will turn situations to our good and to use those situations. So it may not have been God's hand that pushed a boat into the lake,
Yeah.
But God knows how to use that, right? Mm-hmm. Or something becomes out of focus, and God says, I'm going to use this to bring people to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that God necessarily took that away from me. Mm-hmm. I think that he was preparing me for what's to come. And there's a lot that happened after that that you'll hear about in just a minute.
So you got hooked up with the logistics team.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, this is
hold
what
on.
I
You
want.
sound like you've been throwing out logistics team and rolled out, and like Karen is like,
she's on it.
Man, she is on it. You sound like professional. I love it.
I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay, so you're like, all right, this isn't what I wanted, but this is what is now in front of me. This is what I'm going to do. So then you go overseas, right?
Yep, 4 times.
Okay, so you went overseas 4 times.
Where did you go?
I was deployed all over the world. I mean, I traveled to and from a lot of different countries, spent time in the Middle East a lot, Iraq, Kuwait, places like that, and some other places.
So how many years total were you, like, say, back and forth with different deployments? How many years were you?
I was in for 8 years. I was never in the same location for more than 6 months.
Okay,
Wow.
so throughout those 8 years, though, there was months that you were back at home for a little while.
6 months at a time. I would be training. We were always. That's probably why I got divorced so fast. But yeah, it's just so much between the training, the deployments. There's never, whenever you're at that level, in doing the things that we were doing, there's not a lot of downtime, for sure.
So over those 8 years, I want to kind of get into your PTSD. So over those 8 years and all those different deployments where, like you said, there was a lot going on. God really, at this point, I'm not sure when he came back into your life, but God wasn't in your life. Your dreams, your big dreams of what you wanted to do was kind of, taken away from you. Your family life was struggling back at home. So how was that with everything that you had going on with your deployments and with what was going on at home? Like, talk to me about the mental health side of it. Like, what were your struggles and what were you thinking? What were you going through?
Yeah, so it really started whenever I got hurt in Buds. That's whenever this all started. And I'm the kind of guy that I don't talk about things. I bottle it. I just push it down, embrace the suck, adapt and overcome, suffer in silence. 3 big things that we went through,
Hold on, say those. You're talking so fast.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So,
Suck? The word suck?
embrace the suck. Oh, am I allowed to say that? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Cool.
No,
So-
but not to say slow down and enunciate,
Yeah.
but I have no idea what you just said.
So the first one I said, so you embrace the suck.
Embrace. So these are.
Hold on, is this a Navy SEAL thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
About to learn you some today. All right. So embrace the suck.
What does that even mean? But I don't even know if I
the
want to
S
know.
is coming up.
Think about it. It's embrace the suck. Like it's like
It is
There's
what
times
it is.
whenever
Just deal
things are
with it.
so bad, you just look over the dude beside you, you're like, man, this sucks. And you're like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's do it, Suffer
okay.
in silence is another big one. Suffer in silence.
Okay.
I mean, we were drilled that into our heads there. I mean, there's some piece of my soul that's on that grinder, but it's just suffer in silence.
Okay, hold on. So suffer in silence. So you got a lot going on. You're not feeling good about yourself. Just whatever may be going on in your head. Basically, keep it in, bottle it up.
Yep, and adapt and overcome. Fake it till you make it,
Wow.
So, and that's what I was doing for years, and the deployments and being gone. I mean, my son, boy, I didn't meet him until he was 8 months old.
Because you were overseas. Okay.
Yeah, and he came out early. He was 3 pounds 6 ounces. My dad's hand. There's a picture of my dad's hand, and for those of you who can't see me, I'm holding my hand up right now. He was about the same size as my dad's hand whenever he was born.
Wow.
And I wasn't there, and that shook me, man. That was hard.
That's hard to believe that's even 3 pounds.
3 pounds 6 ounces. Yeah, he was a little bean.
Wow.
So I know I keep going back to this, but just the suffering in silence is seriously
That's what I do.
well, not today.
Not today.
Not today. Today
Not
we're
today.
sharing in hopes of helping others out there to say, you know what? You don't have to suffer in silence.
Right. How many people
Yes.
were diagnosed with a mental illness or whatever, struggling with their mental health, and suffer in silence?
Right.
I can see the light bulbs in people's head going off, going, "Oh, that's me."
Right.
So maybe we should say something really important after this because everyone's gonna be like tuning in, going, "That's me."
But what's amazing to me is that for years, for 8 years, with everything that you're going through with your family life, the deployment, your son was born premature, and then it's getting drilled into your head to suffer in silence.
Yep.
I think about that, Jay.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. I mean, I can't even imagine how you bared all of that and what that had, and then you have to come home and try to live a regular life and get back into reality. I mean, how do you do that?
You fail. Fail until
Well,
you
I mean,
don't.
is that the thing? The only guy that the most well-known I keep joking about you about is Chris Kyle. But, it's like, yeah, it is. It's kind of weird. Like, you see these movies and whatever where people come back from war and situations and they have to come back into regular life, and driving down 19 in their car, and it's just like, this is not, what I've been doing for the last 6 months, and so there's shock, right? I mean, there's culture shock to come back to America.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It is.
So tell us a little bit about that, because that's playing into something that you're going to tell us about that you had for a little while.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, you go from being places that are just so bad over there. And there's some great places. I've been very blessed and been able to visit some very wonderful countries. And a lot of those countries I'd love to take my family back to. And there's other places that, not so cool. But you come back from these kinds of places and you're so accustomed to the schedule. You get in a routine, and it's just bang. Day in, day out is, you just go and you do, and you just turn this. There's this little. That's another thing I figured out in my head. It's kind of like the little humanity switch. I just shut it off, and you don't feel. You're just numb, and you just go and go and go and go, and then you come home and it's like, oh, now what? And then you see how bad it was over there, like how bad these people had it, per se, and how good we have it here in America. And there's so many people that just don't have a clue, and that's hard to deal with, and stuff like that.
So transition is, you're telling us that transition is incredibly hard, and there's these switches, you try to turn it off. But your story, there's a point in your story that you really couldn't do that. You were faced with something that was more than what did you just tell us, to suck it up, adapt, and move on, or overcome, or whatever. You weren't able to play that card, like that wasn't working, right? And what's really interesting about this is that people with mental illness, which we're focusing on as a part of C50, hit this point so many times where they've tried, like, they've tried their therapy, they've tried this and that, and it just doesn't work. They hit the wall, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can lead to suicide. Sometimes, so many times it's broken relationships, hurt relationships, and people, whatever. So, what was that mark in your life, or that wall that you hit, and you were just like, "This is serious"?
Well, my last deployment really just got me. Very good dude was killed over there, and that was tough. That last one was just tough, and I was going through a divorce, and it wasn't going pretty. That was just hard to balance that. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in the Navy. Financial stress. There was just so much that was finally, the dominoes were falling. Mm. And I came back, and I just was a wreck, so.
Isn't that just interesting that you can, even when things are almost out of control, it's almost like you start to juggle, and you're like, I got it. Oh, it's like that,
right,
everything's going 100 miles an hour.
Right.
And then you just can't do it.
No, yeah. Right. It's like you can go along for so long, mm-hmm. and then all of a sudden you just hit that point in your life. You're like, I
can't do this.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore.
I was telling myself, I got this. I was always able to go. You know what I mean? I was always able to make it work. And I was just like, God, I got this. And there was times where I was like, man, I should probably start going to church again, And I was like, I got this. Well, God's like, man, you don't got this.
Yeah.
So then you came back after your friend had died over there.
Yeah.
And then you came back and you hit that wall, and you're like, okay, this isn't good. I'm not right. Mm-hmm. Nothing is working.
Yeah.
So take us from there. Like, what did you do? What did life look like for you then?
Oh, man. So I turned to, I wanted to feel good. And I was just living a dangerous lifestyle, bad lifestyle. There were times when I would stay in my truck because I couldn't be at the house because my ex-wife and I were not good. I mean, we were going to get a divorce, and it was just a toxic environment. So I got into drugs, alcohol, drugs. I was on medication then I did try to see, whenever you come back from a deployment like that, you have to go see I guess it would be a psychologist or psychiatrist, just to do a what they call it, post-deployment psych evaluation. And he was like, man, you got a couple of screws loose, buddy. Like, we're going to talk about this. So I was on several different medications, and I was just numb, and I couldn't feel. And I knew that whenever I was high or hammered or whatever it was, I was happy. And I didn't have joy, but I had happiness, and it was so temporary. And oh boy, it was just so bad, and it all came crashing down.
So you had your post-deployment where you met with I'm guessing if he prescribed you medication, he was a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you actually ever see a therapist, though, to kind of help you and work through all these different emotions and things that you had going on?
I did. Captain Reina. She was awesome. And
so how long did you see her?
3 months.
Okay.
Not long, but...
Was that because you said, I'm out?
Whenever things started changing. No.
Okay.
So things started changing whenever I started to see her.
So things started getting better?
Yes.
Okay. So just to kind of, I feel like we're jumping around just a little bit. So just to kind of bring our listeners in. So you came back, you had your post-deployment. The psychiatrist, he prescribed you medication. Mm-hmm. What did what was your diagnosis? What was he prescribing you?
He said I had PTSD and I had an anxiety disorder, but I was very depressed. So it was like, he's like, you have anxiety disorder, which usually means you're real stressed and worried and stuff, but then you have depression, which brings you down. He didn't know. I don't think he knew what the you know what I mean? He's like, right. You got problems. That's what you got,
Yeah.
So then he put you on just one medication?
A couple different ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was just trying to figure out like what would work for you, basically.
Yeah, and I couldn't sleep, and he gave me these crazy sleeping pills. Oh, man. And I was abusing all of my medication, by the way. So
abusing in what way?
Oh, I was just slamming it down. I
So
mean,
you're taking more than what you should have been.
absolutely. I just wanted
Okay,
to be
you
known.
need to listen to the podcast we just recorded.
Oh yeah,
That's not good.
yeah.
We don't recommend that.
So and it all came to a screeching halt. I remember February 10th was the day. I had finally.
What year is this? February 10th?
2 years ago.
2 years
so
ago.
A little 2 years and like a month now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyways, so it all came crashing down. I broke back into my ex-wife's house, and she found me unresponsive on the couch. I'd overdosed, and she couldn't revive me. She called the police. They came and they couldn't revive me. They called the paramedics. They came. They couldn't revive me. They took me to the hospital. I mean, I was done. Game over. And I spent, but they brought me back. I wasn't completely dead. Tough to kill. But yeah, so I spent 2 weeks in the psych ward there after I had come out of the ICU.
Tyler, you said that you ended up on your ex-wife's couch and you're overdosed, and people couldn't revive you. Was that accidental or was that on purpose?
Oh, that was intentional for sure.
Okay.
I was so done with everything. I was on a bender there, yeah. And I came back, and I remember going into the house and just downing the bottle of Ambien, and I was like, all right, this is it.
Okay.
And then next thing I know, I'm in hospital. It was crazy, but it did not feel good.
Tyler, you had said that you were in the psych ward for about 2 weeks. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And I remember when we were first talking about your story, you talked about your dad coming in and him talking to you. So I just want you to kind of talk a little bit about that and talk a little bit about what he talked to you about and how it became a turning point in your story.
Yeah, so just the way that I was raised, it was kind of a tough love thing a lot, but it was good, you know what I mean? And I found out that he was out there, and I'm thinking, man, my dad flew the whole way out to San Diego to see me after I was on all these drugs. I'm thinking, man, he's about to light me up in this hospital in front of these people. So I go to the room there, and my senior chief was just in there. So my senior chief was just visiting me, and he was just telling me how, they have my back and just get better. Don't worry about things. So my dad comes in, and I remember seeing him, and he comes in there, and he had a Bible, and he had some pieces of paper, and he's a Sunday school teacher now, by the way. Keep that in mind. So he says, I can't save you, son, but Jesus can. And we just sat down, and the whole conversation that I thought we were about to have didn't even come close to taking place like that. We read a little bit of the Bible, and we went over a couple of his Sunday school lessons just for an hour or two at a time for days. He stayed in this little hotel out there for days, and we did it until they would let me out. And it was just, that's whenever things really started to change.
Well, tell us about the change. I mean, you got me on the edge of my seat here, and just like a lot of people out there, I mean, you had a rough go. I mean, we're at rock bottom. Things start to change. Tell us how you were changing, maybe physically and spiritually, right?
So I got out of the psych ward, and after just reading those lessons every day, I really started reading the Bible again, and just I was like, all right, I need to stop doing what I'm doing, and I really need to focus on what's important here, and that's Christ, and I need to get back to that. And I knew I didn't lose my salvation. I had just drifted, and I had put God on the back burner for so long, and I had to hit rock bottom to realize that I can't do this. He's got to carry me through this. So I put him first in my life, and I stepped out of the, I'll never forget this. Me and my dad walked out of that hospital, and I looked up at the sky, and it was, I'll show you all the picture because it is incredible. It was purple like I have never seen in my life, and he looked over at me and said, that's a blessing. This is the start of the rest of your life. Huh. And it was. I mean, it was just, it got so much better after that. It took a little while. It wasn't like, oh, now it's all sunshine and rainbows. No. Right. But that's the start of my real journey with Christ.
Right. In the Bible, my favorite verse in the Bible, I don't know if it's, I think it's my life verse. If you kind of have one of those verses that you latch onto, is Luke 2:52, and it says that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And so it says that Jesus as a boy grew mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially. And so, I'm thinking about your life, and I'm putting you on the spot, because we don't have an outline, and so I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But tell us about some of those areas, okay? And take us up till today, okay? Let's take these last 2 years and say, and you don't have to nail all these, right? There's 4 of them. Jesus grew mentally, physically, spiritually, and socially.
Okay.
Tell us about that change, because at C50, we want people to know that Jesus changes, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. Most of the time, and takes a lot of work, and it's not just spiritual.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct. Yeah.
So I got out of that place, and I went to rehab there, and I was my therapist. I was talking to her about Christ, and I found this new church out there. I found this church out there called The Rock, and it's a big church, very much like the Bible Chapel, actually. It's probably bigger. It is huge. Anyways, and the pastor there, Miles McPherson, he used to play for the San Diego Chargers. I went down the front one day whenever people came and rededicated their life to Christ. I was feeling, and I went down there and I shook his hand, and we all went into this back room, and he asked me, he said, what's troubling you? And I said, I just feel like I've let God down. I said, I've just over and over and over again, I'm in a better place now, and I'm trying to follow Christ. I just said, I feel like I'm letting him down. He said, brother, you're not holding him up. And I was like, ooh, man, that is so true. He said, you ain't holding him up. He said, he's here. He loves you, He just wants a relationship with you. That's all. Let's start with that. And I was like, oh.
Wow.
That's huge.
Cutting onions in here or what? But man, I was like, okay, let's do it, and that started something special. I mean, it just lit a fire in me, and I got involved as much as I can with teaching my son about God at that point. And I was, at that point, I was getting out of the military. So I made the decision, like, I'm going back to Pennsylvania. And it was stressful because I'm like, you don't make a lot of money in the military, but I didn't know what I was about to do with my life. I didn't have a college degree. I have experience in doing things for the SEAL teams. Like, how do you relate that to civilian life?
Right.
And I was like, man, what am I going to do? So I prayed about it. And within a week, a very dear friend of the family said, hey, do you still have your union book from before you joined the military? I said, no, but I can make a phone call and see if I can get back in the union. He said, I got a job for you. And I mean, it was a good job. And I thought, man, that's crazy. Like, I get a job back in Pennsylvania making good money. Like, I mean, I'm going to be working hard and long hours and great. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And it just started to fall into place. The pieces, like, got Tetris level expert, just putting the pieces in place, and I moved back here to Pennsylvania and I started over, and it really started to get better.
When Tyler's talking about things falling in place, we're not saying that if you follow Jesus that things are going to fall in place and you're going to get an awesome job.
Oh yeah, you could definitely get smacked around a little bit. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Right. And probably it's really harder with Jesus Christ. If you're looking for an easy way to do life, then Christianity is not really your thing, other than peace in your heart, because it's hard. It's tough, but when you're running from the Lord and His design, you're outside of the way that He created things, and so things are going to get messy when you're running from the Lord. And I do believe that when you start to put one foot in front of the other in faith in Jesus Christ, and you start to look at what you're saying, Tyler, you're saying, okay, I'm going to do this for the people that I love. I'm going to do this for me. I'm going to make healthy decisions. I'm going to do this so I can make the right decision for Jesus Christ. When you start to think that way, things do come together. It's not because it's like this, if you do it right, then God's going to bless you all the time. It's not that mentality. But when you start to pursue the Lord, things just fit together like cogs on a wheel because it's really his design. And maybe I'm wrong. And if you're a pastor, I don't want to hash it out, but just shoot me an email, tell me I'm wrong, and
we'll call it a day.
And we'll call it a day, and I'll pray about it, and that's it. But I think it works like that. When you pursue the Lord, things start to fall in place because it's just how God made things happen.
And it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows still. I mean, I found that first job, and that was something that it was what I needed at the time. It was something that, I was
it was
working,
a stepping stone.
I was working 85, 90 hours a week.
So this was after, was it San Diego?
Yes, in Pennsylvania here.
San Diego, moved back to Pennsylvania.
To Washington,
thing.
yes.
Oh,
Wash, PA, yeah.
Wash, okay, great.
So, and I didn't know anybody in the area. I'd never been to Washington, Pennsylvania. It was an hour and a half from where I grew up at. Close enough to where I could run home, but far enough away where, have my own space, which is cool. Yeah. But I was working a lot, and I was a pipeliner. So, I was getting it done, and that was good. It was great. We finished that job, and I got laid off there. And then my next opportunity was on the other side of the state. And I had just spent 8 years being gone. And I was like, I don't really want to be gone again. I did the military thing. Granted, now I'm making some money, which is good, but I'm at the point in my life now, I want to settle down a little bit. So another opportunity came up. I prayed about it, and I got hired with another company. They gave me my CDL, and I worked there for a while. And then that opportunity led me to where I'm at now. And and I found this church while that was going on. My parents went to Israel, and they're like, man, you gotta check this church out. They went on the Israel trip with the Bible Chapel.
Oh, okay.
And that's when they were like, dude, you got to check this place out.
So your parents didn't go to the Bible Chapel?
Oh, no, they're not from around the area.
Right. Okay, so they just happened to get hooked up on that same trip.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Tunch went and baptized my dad in Jordan River. It's crazy.
Do you go to you work with Bella and now we're talking small town because we're not talking in a worldwide perspective.
Right.
We're talking about our church, but our church that we all four go to has multiple locations. Are you with Bella at her location?
Yeah.
He's at
not at Washington.
No, I've never been to the Washington campus.
Okay.
I should check it out, but I just haven't been there yet.
Do you live in Washington?
I do.
Okay, great.
So I got involved with this church. I started going every week, and I really liked the atmosphere, and things were really starting to make sense. And it said, and there was a lesson about serving. I was like, you know what? I need to do more. I know that it's not about what you do, but I wanted, not because I felt like I have to do something to get in heaven or anything. I feel like I'm so happy with what Christ has done with me that I want to give back. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? What am I good at? I'm good at talking to people, kind of. I have a crazy life story, and this is just scratching the surface, really. But there was an opportunity to serve with youth, so I sent them an email, and Jeremy was like, "Hey, you want to grab a burrito?" And I said, "Okay." So we went and got a burrito at Moe's, and
if you want a burrito at Moe's, just contact Jeremy.
Yeah, Pastor Jeremy. He's like, I got you. He loves to eat burritos and talk about his muscles. That's great.
He's a good dude.
Yeah. Great guy. And we are really close now. So, and we got involved, and I started serving, and now I work with the youth there, and just trying to give back.
Throughout this podcast, we talked about the different struggles that you went through, the different diagnoses that you've been given, which were like PTSD. You said that you struggled with anxiety, depression, and you kind of used alcohol and drugs to cope with that. So that was 2-3 years ago, and now you're here. So where is all of that now?
It's mostly in the past. I mean, I have PTSD, and I'm aware of it, and I know that I want to say this. I put my faith in the Lord, and through Him, all things are possible.
So, not to interrupt, I'm so sorry. Yeah. So, you did see a therapist for a while. Did she teach you different coping mechanisms? Like when you have those moments and you find yourself sliding backwards, obviously, I'm with you. Prayer is huge. But did you learn some things along the way as to how to help yourself get through that?
I did. Just to ground yourself, you know?
I've talked about grounding techniques too.
You ain't
Yeah.
really, yeah.
I don't even know what that means,
first
but that's
thing- the
awesome.
I haven't even made
Yeah.
it there yet.
So, whenever an episode happens, which doesn't happen very often anymore at all, but when it happens, just, you have to recognize that. And it's kind of like, I try to sit back and think outside the box. And as hard as that is in that moment, just to ground yourself, breathe. If you got to just pinch yourself or whatever, there's so many things that just, you need to feel something. You're here.
Yeah.
And in the now. And I have a wonderful network of friends. Like my best friend, Jake, he could tell you some stories. But
So when you say like grounding techniques, is that just like bringing yourself back to reality and what's real and truthful? Is that what you mean?
Kind of, yeah. Yes. In a way. It's hard to explain. But yeah, just realizing the moment that this too shall pass. God's got you. And
so is this, Bella, you're nodding your head. So these are things that you also work on with your therapist?
Yeah,
Okay.
during my panic attacks, because it's kind of like an outer body experience.
yeah,
You
Bella,
don't feel...
She knows a lot more about this than I do. I
Yeah.
just kind of, but yeah.
So it's like you don't feel present anymore. So having those grounding techniques really helps you realize, like, no, I'm here. Like, this will pass. Like, I love the analogy, and I don't know if someone's ever said this to you, but it's like a cloud, and it'll pass by. It'll float away, but it's going to pass. It's here right now, but it'll pass, and you're here in this moment, and you're okay.
Well, we've had a great podcast with Tyler, and we're excited that he has joined us today. And one of the last things we're going to do is ask him a question on where he is with his faith. And the reason that it's important is because we want you to know that there are stories of redemption, that God can do amazing things. So, Tyler, I'll give you the last word and tell us where you are with Jesus right now and give us a little glimmer of hope.
Well, I'm walking with Christ right now. He is absolutely the most important thing in my life. And that being said, it's definitely not all sunshine and rainbows, and that's okay. And a big thing, I went through so much through the last 8 to 10 years in my life, and there were some really hard times. There were some really good times, and I'm blessed to have experienced all that, because as bad as it was, and it was bad at times, that makes His grace so much sweeter, because I've been through that, and other people have, and you know what I'm talking about. If you're listening right now, and you can relate in any way, like the times were bad, and Jesus is still there for you, and He will always be there to redeem you, and He loves you, and that's what makes it special.
Thanks for listening today. Again, we have tried hard to share truth authentically, and we hope that this has been a helpful time in your life. To reach us, donate, share your story, and give us feedback on how we can do a better job reaching people that are struggling. Please go to www.c50hope.com.
We leave you with this. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. 2 Corinthians 3:17. And remember, as Jack Miller said, you're far more loved than you ever dare imagine.